The food crisis in Ghana's senior high schools has become a pressing issue, undermining the success of the free senior high school policy. Reports indicate severe shortages of essential food supplies, leaving students and school administrations struggling to maintain basic nutrition standards. President Mahama, barely forming his government and with multiple urgent problems inherited, has issued directives to curb the problem from further deteriorating. This episode explores how we got to this point and what lasting solutions exist. Several warnings by the Conference of Heads of Assisted Secondary Schools to the previous government about the disruption the crises could cause to the smooth running of these schools have gone unheeded. Could the sustenance of the free senior high school be threatened by the current crises? In this edition, I sit with the group's National Secretary Primus Baro. I am Kemeni Amana, and this is Hot Issues. You're welcome to Hot Issues.
Thank you, Kemeni.
Indeed.
Yes.
Let's look at the problem facing our second cycle institutions now. It is not just about food. Help us understand the scope of the problem, of the crises that we face.
Well, there are two broad issues, burden on food, burden of money. Now, let me take each of them and try to see whether I can break them down. Now, on the issue of money, we're talking about three areas. Number one, we are talking about some arrears. Arrears in respect of what we call the recurrent fee. Recurrent fee is what we all know as school fees in the ordinary language. Things that take care of basic, the day-to-day administration of the school. And there are about 14 to 17 fee items under the recurrent. Things like maintenance, stationery, ID cards for students. There are about 14, I think 14 to 17. It falls within that range. Then we also have, that is one aspect of it. So we have some arrears in that respect, dating as late as 2021.
I see.
Now, the other component about the money is also the arrears in respect of what we call the perishables. These are monies that come for us to buy ingredients, take care of the kitchen, things like gas, firewood, cooking pots, everything that is related to cooking. And then the other ingredients, that's what we call the perishables fee. So we also have some arrears in that respect. So that's about the money. But we also have the issue of food. The raw food under the free senior high school system, the arrangement is that it's government that supplies those food items to the school. If the raw food comes to us, then we now buy, government gives us a component for the perishables to cook the food for the students. So these were the areas in terms of money that we have some arrears, and which we wrote to government.
How much is overdue?
In terms of the amount, I won't be able to say. And the reason is simple. Because we really do not have CHASS as we sit. We really do not have the what we call the fee structure. We do not have the apportionment, what amount goes to each of the items that I mentioned or I talked about. We don't know how much goes into it. But we know the areas. Of course, we are there. Monies are paid. That you've received money for maintenance, for example. You have received money for sport. And it's only then you are able to take that figure and divide it by the total number of students. Then you are able to tell at a certain given point in time what amount comes to your school. That is the difficulty. And the challenge is simple. The reason why we find it difficult to put a figure on it is just that we used to have what we call the fee fixing committee. Okay. It used to exist originally. And this committee was made up of the Ghana Education Service, GES, that is the Ghana Education Service. Then you also have the Ministry of Education, and then Conference of Heads, and even the Accountants Association. So every year they meet to look at the fee, the amount per each item, negotiate if there's a need for it to be adjusted. But for some time now, we've not been involved. So we really do not know how much comes in for each of the items. But we know that...
I see. So you know how much it will cost you to take care of the students. But for every year, you don't know how much the government is willing to give you until the money comes.
We know what items constitute what we call the recurrent fee or the school fees. But as to how much it will cost, for example, is made up of some of the items I mentioned.
Yeah.
It's made up of maintenance, stationery, what do you call it, laboratory, science lab, practicals, and the rest. Those are the items. So originally, we will be able to tell you, initially, we'll be able to tell you how much will come. So if we put the figures on each of these items, you will know how much comes as school fees per head. But currently, it is difficult for us to tell because we are no more part of the, what do you call it, the committee.
Because you don't determine
We don't
the
determine
fees.
it, so we cannot tell. It is only when, you know, the issue is that for a long time now, and that's what I'm just talking about, for a long time, it's not as if the normal thing would have been that every year, government will push the amount to you. This is the recurring fee. And this is the amount that goes for each of the items. But we don't really have an idea of what...
You don't make any input at all?
We don't make any input, so it's difficult. So the few items that have come in over the years, and over the years, all the 14 to 17 fee items I'm talking about, not all of them have been paid. Some have not been touched at all.
Like which ones?
Things like ID cards, things like maintenance, things like a whole lot of them. In fact, in the course, in all these years, it's all about 2 or 3 that we've talked about, we've received. And that one doesn't even come every year. One will come at a time. Sporting has come somewhere last 2 years. The whole of last year, I will not receive anything in respect of sports and culture. Sanitation came about 3 years ago, or was it 2 years ago? For all these years, we have not received anything on sanitation. So these are the challenges. So, but the point we're making is that we still have some, some arrears, because we're able to tell. With the bank narration, we're able to tell which aspect the fee is coming in for. But we won't be able to tell you until it is paid how much government has decided that they want to pay. So that is the difficulty. So we have arrears, and that's about the money. So we also have issues of utility bills.
Before you get to utility bills, again, let's go back on the fee items, right? Yeah. You're saying some of them you haven't had payment for since 2017?
2017, when we had this. For 2017, we seem not to have much problem in 2017. In fact, most of the disparities or the challenges started emerging somewhere from 2021 up to date. I wish I had brought all if I had known, I would have brought all I would have been able to tell you out of the items, those that were paid within the period. But by and large, a lot of it was not paid within the period.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. And then the 3 items that were focused on are which items? The 3 items in your 14 item list that were focused on are which ones?
Yeah, I think I quite remember somewhere along the line we received for sports.
Okay.
We have received for sanitation. We have received for examination. In fact, that is the most common.
I see.
Examination has
is the most common.
Is the most that has been attended to over the years because of very obvious, reasons. But all the others like ID cards, library fee, ICT fee, and the rest, not at all. Some have never even featured. I
mean, so how have you handled those things over the years, 4, 5 years that you haven't received money for?
Kemini, the money that comes largely, I wish we have not reached there, but what has been quite constant, which though it's not up to date, has been the perishable, component of the fee. We're talking about two issues here: the recurring fee and the perishables. The perishable, because it has to do with feeding, that one is quite constant, even though we have some outstanding. But so basically, that is what.
So what I'm asking is, for instance, on an issue like sports. Culture, like you mentioned earlier, when you don't receive the money for those, how does it impact your ability to take those programs?
When was the last time you heard that we had inter-schools? I'm sure in your days, every year, you used to hear of inter-colleges, national. When was the last time? You realize that we don't more have it. In some regions, in my region, for example, it's been more than 2 years now since we have even had inter-regionals. So virtually, that's why some of those activities have come to a halt.
Right.
You will hear of some other regions being able to participate, I'm talking about sports here, at their regional level, because some of the regions are privileged to have some sponsors coming in to sponsor those games. So you can hear of 1 or 2 regions. But basically, inter-regional sports and all those things have come to a halt. And cultural activities. I can't remember the last time we had a national cultural festival. I cannot remember since I became a head. So that will explain it's because some of these monies were not coming in. And of course, at a point in time, There was nothing. But the few things that we are able to do aside the feeding, it is basically trying to do cut and paste. Cut and paste.
Cut and paste. We understand cut and paste, but what region are you referring to as your region?
Upper West.
Upper
I
West
come from
region.
Upper West region.
Upper West region.
Yes.
Right. So then you have this 14-item list. That's different from tuition? Is that different from school fees?
Tuition, yes, is different from tuition.
Okay, so the tuition, is that paid?
The tuition, that one is absorbed by government, so it's paid.
So it's paid. No, but this 14-item list is also absorbed by government.
Government, yes.
Okay.
That one is paid.
I'm going somewhere with that because when I look at the Auditor General's report from 2020 till 2024, monies are given for pre-tertiary institutions. Now, these pre-tertiary institutions, your institution, second cycle institution, make about 80% or more of these pre-tertiary institutions.
That's right.
So, if these monies are paid and you expend those monies, how then do you tell me that the government wasn't paying?
That's what I'm saying, that, you know, with the free SHS system, you know, the difference, you appreciate the scenario that you are putting up better when you compare the free HSS system with that of the old system.
Right.
The old system, all these items that I'm talking about used to come directly to the schools. The schools collect these monies. So there's no problem at all. All right. But with the case, in the case of the free HSS, yes, it's agreed that these are the areas, but the monies don't come to the school. The government retains. What only comes to the school is the perishables component that I talked about. And even with the perishable code, for example, currently, the perishables are about 7 cedis, 50 pesos per student.
A day?
A day. Now, with the 7 cedis, 50 pesos, only 2 cedis, I think 2 cedis, 50 pesos comes to the school directly. And that's what we used to buy the ingredients. We used to buy the, I think 2 cedis, 2.1, 2 cedis, 10 pesos, yeah. So that's what we used to buy the ingredients, take care of the kitchen and the rest. The rest, that's a 5.4 thereabout, is retained by government. And that's what government uses to pay the food staff, which they procure for the schools.
Right.
So that is so, yes, the fees are there, but they don't come to us. They are retained, and government uses that one to pay whatever relevant services. That's why, for example, we have the issues, if you look at our communique, some of our communiques, I think starting from 2021, 22, we've been advocating, because issues like repairs or maintenance work, issues about stationery, these are things that we do directly in the schools there. So if government retains them, it becomes extremely difficult, especially if you want to contextualize it in the context of, you put it in the context of individual schools. Because at a certain given point in time, the priorities are different. The level of needs in terms of even maintenance work will vary from one school to the other. So it's very difficult for a money to lie in a common source, and you kind of, indicate, you kind of determine the kind of repairs that should be done across the country. Right. But if they were in the schools, then at every given point in time, you'll be able to undertake these things, knowing very well where it pinches you the hardest.
I see.
Yes.
And then the issue of utilities. Yeah,
the issue of utilities is borne by the government, and that's why most of them. The issue of utilities, most of the schools now are now using the prepaid.
Right.
And government, because government has that money, a time comes the lights will go off. You need to buy lights, but the money at that time is not with you. So you have situations where a lot of schools will go dark until such a time that government is able to pay VRA or ECG, and then they come to, or give them the money for them to buy their units.
How often does that happen?
I think it's quite rampant because the complaint is very high. Fortunately, some of the schools are still on prepaid. My school, for example, largely is still on prepaid, so we often do not have that challenge. But those those who are most hit are those who are on the prepaid, meters.
These problems that you have identified, is it affecting all of you the same way?
Those are the general problems.
Okay.
Those are. I will not usually go to some of the issues because they may be peculiar, but from where we sit, we generally will deal with. So the issue of arrears that I've talked about, it affects every school. The issue of food shortages. If you, I don't know whether you are aware of that. Last week we issued another letter to our Director General, indicating some critical, areas about 8 food items that we listed. What immediately comes to my mind will include things like the cereals, apart from rice, all other cereals, like maize, millet. You talk about peanut. You are talking about oil, vegetable oil. we listed about 8 food items which are still in critical. The schools need them seriously. So those are general. But apart from those areas that we mentioned, some you may see as for rice now generally, even though some schools will still complain they don't have rice. But generally now every school has got some amount of rice. So those are the general areas. Yeah.
The general perception is that CHASS has itself to blame because you kept quiet for so long.
Yeah.
Why were you so quiet?
If anybody says CHASS has been quiet, it's not true. I must say it's not true. Excuse my language. It's almost unfortunate. CHASS has never been quiet. CHASS has never been quiet. And I say so because I was speaking to one of the media houses, I think about 2-3 days ago, when this issue came up. And I said that is not true. I don't know, for some reasons, I don't know whether because of the change of government, that you, the media houses, are now trying to find out these issues. Because these same letters that has come out and we are now discussing, these letters have always been out there.
Your letters started coming out August 2024.
The letters didn't come out August 2024.
When did
yes, August for this year.
Yes,
for this year.
For the just ended year.
For just ended years, yes. They started coming out. And, you know, August just preceded our conference. You know, we had our conference in October. So for this year, yes, I think the first one on these issues came up. But before then, there had been a lot of similar letters. There had been a lot of engagements. Indeed, it went up to as far as to the parliamentary, last year, we went up to as far as the parliamentary select, committee. And then, so we've been talking.
Well, the reason we say that is because I remember also clearly the number of attempts that we had made to come into some of these schools to talk to some of your members about the challenges that they faced. Yeah. And increasingly, they had turned us away, not because they didn't want us to film the problems, but because they said that they were afraid. What were your members afraid of? Well,
as for a feeling, you hardly can tell why somebody is afraid. But you see, the point is that in every organization, I mean, to answer your question straight, is it because of the structure of communication we have maybe in the Ghana Education Service? Our service does not easily, unless of course you have been given clear directions or clear, permission by your director, your district director, your regional director, up to the Director General. Unless you have been given clear clearance, it's not usually permissible, you know, for people to just speak straight on issues. But of course, if, for example, you are coming to my school and there's an issue which you want me to speak to, I have to pre-inform my regional director, for example, that there is this issue in the school. The regional director will not necessarily, you know, ask you not to speak to it, but you have to let him, for you to get that permission before you are able to. So, and you know, unfortunately, I've experienced it myself. You are there all of a sudden, I'm not talking about TV3, but I'm talking about press houses in general. You are there all of a sudden, a journalist surfaces, oh, I'm coming to film this, or I'm coming to interview about that. And that is where our members are.
No, but Primus, you know that's not what I'm talking about. Yeah, because again, you're right, that some of these issues had popped up earlier. Yeah. And we attempted to tell your stories for you. Yeah. But some of you decided that you won't let us tell the stories because you had received orders from above. Yeah. So that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, you have received orders from above.
Were you being gagged by the previous administration not to share the true nature of the impact of the problem?
The impact of the mess, the so-called mess. Well, I don't want to use the word gag, but I'm sure people were just being cautious, like I said, and it boils down maybe to the what do you call it, what I just referred to, the channels of what do you call it, communication. And you know, I mean, frankly speaking, to be frank, I can talk about it because I'm a national officer. Frankly speaking, anybody, it could be me, anybody who is in authority.
People were threatened with transfers.
I mean, frankly speaking, we've had complaints of that. We've gone into, at the national level, we've had to negotiate on 1 or 2 issues regarding such. Anyway, we've had our own share. I can tell you for a fact, I mean, these are facts. These are things that happened. There was a time we issued a communique at Cape Coast. I think that was somewhere in 2023. We were summoned to the minister's house, office at that time, and he was not too happy about some of the things that we said. But I said, well, we are only representing what our members are. But just to answer your question, yes, the answer really is that it's true. It's true that a lot of people were afraid to talk. Possibly, they were, I mean, you said that some of them said they were warned or they were threatened. That could be a reality. And that maybe is also a reality. It's possible it happened. You can't take that one away. So that we equally had those hints of people felt that they were not given that opportunity to speak out. But even in recent times, I'm not sure the headmasters are speaking out. Maybe we are hearing more from us as national leaders. And as national leaders, I said I agree with you that maybe getting to the end of this at this particular time, the issues are coming out more. They're coming out more.
Because there is a change in government.
That could be. And because there's more focus, because the media houses, over the years, we have been giving you our communique, people don't even ask us to come and discuss.
That's not true. That's not
true. It's true.
Why are you blaming the media for this?
No, I'm saying that, look, as I started today, before I got into this studio, I had gotten more than 4 calls just while I was waiting.
The education ministry couldn't have sacked all of you.
I don't even understand why all these years, media houses were not calling us.
Because like suddenly you have decided to talk to us.
Were you also afraid to talk to us?
No, we were always talking to you. We had gone to some of the schools we were turned away, right?
And I'm also telling you that there have been a lot of instances that the way people are calling us now to talk is not the way. And it's not as if people are talking now. It's also, we used to rather go to the media. In most cases, we want to come and discuss our communique. And even this year, when we distribute our communique, nobody called us to talk about it. So it's from both sides. I agree with you. I didn't disagree with you entirely that maybe people had a perception, or indeed people were cautioned not to talk. I cannot throw away that entirely, and that could be true.
So when you released that communique and you went to the former education minister's office, what did he say to you?
No, I think we should leave that one. We've gone past that. But he has certainly expressed his displeasure about some of the wordings in the communique. He felt hurt, but we explained to him that that was an individual. What we said represents the views of our members. So, but we apologize if he felt hurt, but we still stood to our grounds that these were the realities of the time.
We'll come back and talk about the bigger picture of how the situation is impacting you and your students and the teaching and learning process.
Yeah.
Don't go away. Primus Baro is my guest here on Hot Issues. He's National Secretary for CHASS, Conference of Heads of Assisted Secondary Schools. We've been talking about the crises that we are facing in our second cycle institutions at the moment. We know, Primus, that when this issue resurfaced and the Ghanaian people, became very much more interested in it, you had a meeting with the Chief of Staff of the current administration. Talk to us about that meeting and what impact it's had on the problem so far.
So, yes, we had an engagement with the Chief of Staff. I must say a very fruitful one. Of course, let it be known that we made that request. And again, this is not the first time, I must admit, that, and it's not just in this regime. Earlier on, in the previous regime, we had made similar requests, but for some reasons, we've never had that opportunity. This time around, we're gracious enough. I mean, we're lucky enough to be graciously offered the opportunity to meet the Chief of Staff. It was a very warm meeting, a very frank meeting that we made known the issues that are confronting us. And then the Chief of Staff with his team, they listened to the issues, and immediately they proffered some put in place some contingency measures to deal with the issue in the short run than in the long term. For example, I'm sure you heard on TV a few days back, the President himself made a statement that he had ordered that some food stuff that were packed
be distributed. Has that distribution begun?
It has not. We have not received them yet. I don't know how far it has gone. But it's clear, even from the deliberation, that it's going to be part of the contingency.
What impact could that make, on the problem?
A lot.
What impact could it have?
A lot. I mean, you have a situation. I mean, as we talk now, today, as we talk now, some schools really do not have any. They virtually do not have any item in the stores. And in fact, in the next 2 days, if nothing hits the stores, they will close. Some schools are feeding their students twice a day, as we talk today. And that's a fact.
Instead of 3 times?
Instead of 3 times. And even those that are managing to feed the students 3 times, the quality of the food is another thing that you need to talk about. So without missing words, it's a very dire issue. We will not run away from that. And we will challenge you again. That's what I talk about. This time maybe they will allow you to go. They will challenge you again to go and find out what the situation is. It's really dire. So it's this. If the full staff hits our campuses, it will solve the situation to a very large extent. So that is one aspect of it. Now at the meeting, the government has also agreed to send some monies to the schools directly. You know, I told you there are 18 food items. We talked about fee, but with the food items too, there are 18 of them. Right. So, and out of these 18 items, so far in the country, what is most common? And in fact, in the case of the three northern regions that I can talk about, the three traditional northern regions, Upper East, Upper West, and then the then northern region, which is now made up of northern region, Savannah, and Northeast, only rice is what is in the schools. If you go to any other school and you find any other food item, per chance, then it is likely to come from a different place. Maybe it's from PTA, PA, or it's from the old boys. Apart from that, that is rice. So it's a very dire situation. So we are saying, so because of that, they have agreed, the government has agreed that they will release some funds directly to school, covering the next 16 days. That's about 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
For the schools to immediately purchase raw food around their area.
Right.
And then, so I think it's the same 7 cedis, 50 pesos for the boarding schools.
Is that enough? This 7 cedis,
it's not
50
enough.
pesos?
Kemini is not enough. But that is why we're operating. That's the figure we're operating with. Maybe future, yesterday, that was part of we recommended, I mean, at the meeting, we recommended the revisiting of the fee fixing committee that I talked about, which has been disbanded for so many years. So, and I think they're listening to us. So we are going to negotiate
to
on
review
this.
some
We'll
of
review
these
the
fees,
items.
like
we'll review. But for now, that is what we are operating. So for now, we will be happy with that. So that will do. So they will release the 7 cedis, 10 pesos for the boarding schools, and then 3 cedis for the day schools. You know, they take only one hot meal. So to cater for the next 2 weeks. Then, but we hope that by the time these 2 weeks are exhausted, then the government will now come out clearly what it intends to do going forward. Because this is a new government, we don't know what their direction will be. They have indicated there are strong indications that there's going to be this National Education Consultancy, meeting or forum. We know these things. The details will come in. All the stakeholders will give their views as to the direction to go. What will come, CHASS will put on the table will not be anything new. Looking at what we've been communicating through our communications over the years. So, but when the time comes, you will hear the details. So for now, these are the contingency measures that has been put in place.
Is the root cause of this problem because of how the free senior high school is being implemented apart from you, the head teachers?
Basically. And the main issue, the main problem is just because the free senior high school policy didn't have a dedicated source of funding. And this is something, again, that we've been talking about with all over the years, and because of that, when you have a big policy, obviously this is the biggest educational policy that we've ever had in this country, and you don't have a dedicated source of funding, then it becomes a bit, problematic. Right. So those are the ones, that is because of that, those implementation challenges, have come and have bedeviled the otherwise excellent, policy. Yes.
I see. And so as this government says that it would review the free senior high school policy, what recommendations would you make to the government in order to do this properly? Would you recommend that they include CHASS a bit more in the process?
That's the way to go. Once you talk about a review of every policy, every stakeholder has to have a bite. CHASS is there, the parents are there, government itself is there, and other stakeholders. So it is not just about CHASS, but everybody who matters
should be there.
Should be there. Yes.
I see. You mentioned quality of food earlier.
Yeah.
That is even a conversation on its own. What is the quality of food like?
It's generally not up to our expectation.
What is your expectation?
Our expectation is, we all know basically what a decent meal is. You go for, I don't know how to cite it. For example, you're supposed to take a jollof rice, right? You know what basic ingredients should be in jollof rice. A little bit of pepper should be in there. You should have a little bit of Kita boys in there. The oil should be such as something that when you take it, you should be able to go down well.
Yeah.
But you basically going for jollof rice, for example, and it's nothing but the rice itself, a bit of salt, and then water.
Really?
Can you call it as jollof rice?
No, you can't.
You can't. I mean, so this is what.
But why were you feeding the students that?
That is what we had.
I mean, why didn't you take more action?
Action in what sense?
Why would you wouldn't feed that to your child?
I wouldn't.
Why would you feed it to someone else's child?
And that's what we kept requesting for, and we have been requesting for what we think.
I mean, if it had to do with child salaries, you would have gone on strike for that.
We cannot go on strike. We can only protest. We can only advise. We can only push, like we are doing now, and we are crying.
So you would have.
And that's why
you would have hit the streets for your salaries.
Oh, you wanted us to do that? Maybe if we are among us, you would have given us that suggestion. We never thought of that, but we did everything humanly possible. We pushed. We really pushed to a very large extent. You still don't want to agree that we didn't make as much noise as, but we did.
That's not where I am. I'm saying that the quality of food you're feeding the students is not something you feed your children at home.
Yeah, so what you expected us to
I expected a bit more. A bit more.
Maybe we didn't do what we didn't meet your expectation. But I can tell you, I mean, on a more serious note, you know, CHASS. Let's put it this way: CHASS is not a union. We don't operate like the teacher unions. NAGRAT, my union, can get up and declare a strike, and because of, I mean, they have that right, that mandate. CHASS is a professional organization. We play more like we are part of management. And so, you see, that's why we're a bit reluctant. The way we'll come out with issues, the unions will do it differently. We may not be able to just come out openly and talk about that, but there's always been, and there is still a lot of, we always do a lot of negotiations and, you know, consensus building behind the scenes. You don't expect us, it can't happen. You don't expect us, you know, to come in and say, like you are talking about some of the issues like the unions adopt, going on street, going to the studios to discuss these things. That's why we are very circumspect. We are very circumspect in addressing our issues. And it's only on rare occasions like yours and a few others. We've been coming out to the press, but we cannot do it the way the unions will do it.
And so that's how bad the quality of food is for the children at the moment.
Yeah, so I mean, to put it, it's not the best. It's not the best at all. And in some cases, it is not something that, it's not something that's worth feeding our kids, to put it that way. But let me indicate again that this has been quite sporadic. I mean, there are occasions like when we cry out and food comes, it goes up to the level that we think that that's the minimum standards, which is acceptable. There are certain times it also goes to the other extreme. And we think generally going forward, I mean, the best is to reach the minimum. We shouldn't go below. I mean, like a few minutes ago, we talked about some implementation challenges. Yeah. Those days that the schools, people have always made the argument that, yes, in those days, schools used to close down even when students were collecting their fees. But we've never reached in that era. I mean, we all went to school in that era where we were paying fees directly to the schools, and schools were procuring their own food items. We've never reached this level of poor quality of food. No. Yes, there could have been some setbacks, some challenges even within that era, but we didn't go this low.
Then our children are malnourished in the secondary schools.
I don't need to tell you, Kemini. I'm sure you have, if you don't have your child in the senior high school now, you have a sister or a brother or a relative. I mean, these are. I want to borrow the words of Honorable A.B. Fuseni, that, you know, when, what do you call it, a man dies in the market, you don't need to announce his funeral. It's not for CHASS, you know, to come to the public and tell people the quality of food. I mean, this is an open secret. We all see it. Nobody's happy about it. Everybody has talked about it. Even people in government have appreciated the problem. So it's something that we just, I mean, for me, I don't always want us to keep looking at the back. Yeah. The focus should always be, what is the way forward? I mean, that is what is important. And also allowing people, anybody who matters, to put forth your ideas. So together, these are our children. As I said, my boy is in the senior high school. Not in my school, but in another school. And almost all the headmasters.
Are you worried about what kind of food he's eating
when I see him in the house, and when I see him leave the house, he gets back to school. I won't mention his school. But when he comes back, you see the difference. And all the headmasters, almost all of us, we have our direct children or people who are taking care of them. So we're all worried. I mean, everybody's genuinely worried about it.
Our children are facing mass starvation in the secondary schools.
Well, that's what you say. That's how you describe it.
But if there's no food, you are starving.
So I wouldn't use that.
Is it not the case?
I wouldn't use that description. I would just tell you that
if there is no food, what are you doing?
Well, you have used mass starvation. I will use that. It's not the best.
Or a mass hunger exercise.
Well, we can go ahead.
Yes,
well,
indeed.
so it's not the best, but it's not the best. I think much can be done. Much can be done.
Indeed.
Yeah. Yes.
How much would be ideal to provide quality food for the children?
You mean the amount that...
the amount of money you'd need. What would be ideal to be able
to... For now, frankly speaking, if you tell me that I should give you an amount that we will want, for now, I would tell that 10 cedis will do.
Per student per day?
Yes.
For the borders?
That should be able to provide some decent, meals. Yeah, I should think so.
Did you ever get reasons
I've not done... Let me say this,
right.
that it's not something that CHASS has calculated. I'm just saying it at my own, for now, rough calculation. But I'm sure, given the opportunity to be able to propose things like that, we'll do the real mathematics. Our matrons are there. The accountants are there. They will do the necessary calculations, and then I think we should be able to come up with a realistic figure. I'm just saying this off my own head.
I see. Yeah. Let's look at the general quality of education in senior high schools.
Right.
With all these problems you are facing and
yes.
have faced over the last several years,
yes.
how would you describe the quality of education at the moment?
The only indicator that I will rely on will have to do with the WAS, performance, because at the end of the day, that's what we will use to determine whether our students are performing well or not. And if you look at it over the years, consistently, unfortunately, I don't have those figures, but what is true is that if you look at it consistently over the years, there has been some improvement. So again, the factors, if we want to go and try to analyze the factors that are responsible for this consistency in the performance, in respect of these challenges, maybe it's another area that we may need to go into deeper. But in spite of whatever challenges that we have, the performance has been well. I can only attribute it to hard work on the part of all those who matter, the teachers themselves, the kids. Sometimes, if you go to my school and you ask them, that is one thing I have never meant worse. Thanking them for their patience and urging them on just to forget about the fact that, look, you've not come to school to eat or to run around. You have come to school to learn. Just focus on the objective. Of course, all the other things about food and everything matters. They are all significant contributing factors. But yes, for every policy, there will be challenges. Even today that I'm talking about, if they give me even 100 cedis for a child, there will still be challenges. But the important thing is that how do you mitigate or how do you navigate those challenges? So I think it's just hard work and commitment and focus largely by the students and the teachers and the parents to some extent. I think that's the one I can attribute it to.
Yeah. I see. I do want to stay on this subject a little bit more and find out from you.
Yeah.
What are the adjustments that you as teachers and even your students have had to make in the midst of all these crises to achieve what you say you have achieved?
Yes. A question like this, I will look at my own milieu, my own immediate environment. I see my teachers, number one, you need to encourage them. You need to encourage the teachers because salaries, motivation, salaries and other things are also is another thing. Teachers are not, if you check by and large, a lot of teachers are not too happy with their salaries. The only thing that drives them on is the self-motivation, that this is my profession and this is what I want to achieve. And you see, when you are teaching, when you are a teacher, and you see a certain level of commitment on the part of the child, that alone also pushes you. So the adjustment that we have to make is that, and in my school, for example, and in many, many instances, you see, I'm sure you've heard of this intervention package that government used to pay to our teachers. But that thing, even before it came into being, a lot of teachers, and that's what I see in my immediate environment, which is true in many other schools, a lot of teachers do a lot of work on their own. You see, you go to my school in the evening, you see a lot of teachers. Sometimes the teachers even chase the students to come for tuition for which nobody is paying for. So that is the kind of sacrifice they make. And you come, again, let me use I'm always comfortable using some examples from my school. So that makes it safer because you don't know what precisely. And you come to my school, I have about over 73 teaching staff in my school about that. And only about 5 of us are staying on campus. Myself, my 3 assistants, and then 2 female teachers. And yet, MODs, you find MODs on campus right from beginning of preps, some from 6:30 to about 10 o'clock. So these are the sacrifices. So it's just extreme sacrifice on the part. And again, like I indicated earlier on, also sacrifices on the part of the students themselves. You will see that sometimes as if they really don't even realize that they are studying on virtually empty stomachs. Another thing I think that has also helped the system, even though at the beginning, with the inception of the free senior high school, it was a dicey issue. That's the issue of the contribution of parents. You know, a lot of heads, in an attempt to whip the parents into support, they were kind of interdicted because we're seen as making parents to pay money, which the free senior high school at was not parents paying money, but not that they're not allowed to pay money. In fact, that understanding was not there. I mean, we're not too happy about. Frankly speaking, I think in applying that component of the free HSS, that parents should not pay or students should not pay money for tuition or whatever. I think it was applied in a manner at the beginning that we're not too happy about, especially for the fact that a lot of headmasters were interdicted. But for now, over the years, I think because of the conversations that has gone on between arts and our authorities, somehow now we are all beginning to understand the extent and the exact role of parents in contributing to this.
How would you respond to people who say that the children are passing on paper, but qualitatively, they are not there? They are not as intelligent. They are not as bright. And what do you say to those people?
What would that be? What would be their justification? Maybe they could be right, but then you can't blame it on anybody. What we can do, where we can blame it, or where I see the blame, is squarely on the nature of our curriculum. Okay. It is the nature, and I'm happy that now we are far advanced with the new curriculum that is coming into being. We are far advanced, and I tell you, that is going to be the game changer. It's true. I mean, in our current curriculum that we have, it was basically paperwork, something theoretical. You train somebody who is supposed to be doing a practical job, like some of the people who are in the studio here, they are dealing with machines, and he comes and he cannot even, boot a particular machine. I mean, so there's a total, disassociation between what the person is supposed to do on the job and what he's been taught. And I think that is what this current curriculum, in fact, the current first years, they've started with that one. It's going to cure it. I can assure you. We've been part of the process. I personally have represented CHASS in the processes at all levels, and I can tell you that is going to be the game changer. So I think it was based on the curriculum, and we hope that this new curriculum that has been introduced, it will solve that problem to a very large, extent. So it cannot be true that we have a softer marking scheme that is essentially passing the SHS students. I don't sincerely, because I don't have any pointer to that. I don't have, and I don't personally believe in that. Let's come back and talk about some management issue. Yes. Especially about the involvement also of parents. Okay. Don't go away. Welcome back. It's still hot issues. Primus, let's talk about the issue of parents that you brought up earlier. Yeah. Do your institutions generate IGF? Some institutions do, some of them, by virtue of the fact that they have some facilities available to them. Sports pitches, very wonderful auditoriums. So when the public wants to use such facilities, with usually those rates that they may charge, those stipends that they may charge to the general public are usually approved by the board, the school boards. All right, then so GS. So that will constitute IGF. Some IGF, and then some other activities, and also some IGF. And some also have things like school farms. Okay. And then other things that they are able to raise extra income apart from what is just coming from government. So some schools have, and others don't have at all. I see. So, but this IGF is not charged to students. It's not charged to students. So why were some of the head teachers charging fees of students, particularly at the beginning? Do you at the beginning? Kemini, I'm not aware of that. Oh, is it not the case that again? Let me explain that some parents have continued to say Yes.
that even while the school free senior high school policy is in place and
Yes.
it's supposed to be free,
Yes.
they are still being charged for things and they are
Charged
paying.
by the heads?
For the schools,
Charged
to the
by
schools,
the heads?
yes.
Well, if there are instances of that, then I believe, frankly speaking, I mean, the truth of the matter is that with the free SHS policy, no head is allowed to charge any fee. What I referred to earlier on, you see, the confusion was at the beginning. You know, before the inception of the free senior high school, the PTA, and for Parents Teachers Association, the heads were even signatory, you know, to the accounts of the PTA, with the PTA chairman. But with the inception of the free senior high school, they completely decoupled the PTA accounts from, so it was like the school should not have anything to do with the what you call the PTA account. That explains why the name was even changed from PTA to PA. Right. Now, of course, because we're moving in from that transition, I mean, at the initial stages, a head still had the impression that, you know, you are sitting on the seat and you are wearing your shoe, you know where it pinches. So we still have some heads trying to work very closely with the the PAs to be able to raise some funds. And in fact, it's much more, I mean, even as we sit, and we have still been advocating for that, even as we sit, it's easier to use the school system to collect money from these parents. And when I'm saying collect money, what we have been cautioning our members against is collecting these monies, maybe, or chasing kids away, because PTA had agreed to pay a certain levy, and school reopens, you take your list and go around and say, okay, A and B, you didn't pay, go home. That one, we will disassociate ourselves with it. But what we have been advocating for, which has not been granted us, is that, of course, if school reopens, it's much, much easier for parents if they're aware that, okay, we have agreed that we are paying for my school. For example, to take my school, we have a garden project, which was approved. I made a recommendation and they bought in. So we're able to supplement, you know, the food with some vegetables. So we said, okay, school reopens, give that amount to the child as he reports. He or she voluntarily comes. So we gather the money and then we hand over the money to the PA to go and put in their accounts, so that anytime we need any support, we write formally to the chairman and they give us the money. That's what we've been advocating for. But our management has also insisted that no, don't use any school system to collect the money.
I mean, will it be your position that the PTAs be restored?
In fact, they are there. The PTA.
They are PAs now?
Yes, PTA. Why not? Okay. It's actually, I don't want to use that word, but it is not feasible to let the PA operate as if it were a separate entity from the whole, you know, architecture of school management. You cannot. You cannot. We should fashion out a better way. And we have always come out of our ideas. Like I said, let school management be more involved and be represented in that. I mean, there was very good reasons why it was Parents Teachers Association. We are still wondering why somebody or somebody should think that we should have nothing to do with PA. We only sit down there when they bring money, you call it. No, it shouldn't be. There should be a greater involvement of teachers and school management in the activities.
We know that the John Mahama administration plans to review the policy.
Yes.
You have made a couple of recommendations already. On this subject, will it also be your recommendation that the application of the free senior high school policy should not be a free-for-all? From your experience with students and parents?
I will speak to our communique. In fact, at the last communique, I have a copy here. We've made that clear. The dynamics of things keep changing. But for now, it is clear in our communication over the years, not just last year, if you look at from 2023 up to 2020, I mean from 2021 up to, we have always advocated that let's look at areas. We are being careful because once we adopt the free senior high school policy, as much as possible, that cost burden should not be given to parents. It should be borne by government. But is it also true? Is it also true? Is it realistic that free senior high school policy can be 100%? That one, at the end of the day, you may proffer your reasons, but whatever policy direction any government takes, for example, the past government decided that they want to take it 100%. We saw the challenges. If the John Mahama government decides today, fortunately, thankfully, they say they're going to have a national education
Dialogue
dialogue on that. If at the end of the day they decide, okay, we are going to take 70%, 80%, 50%, we'll try to put out our because we are the implementers, we'll try to put up our case strongly.
When you look at that Auditor General's report, period 2020 to 2024,
okay,
there is a problem we see with the management of our senior high schools as well. Issues with textbooks that haven't been returned from students. From period 2020 to 2024, we see that the number has more than doubled of textbooks that have not been returned.
You mean students take them away?
Yes.
Okay.
And some of your members have no way of retrieving it, costing us money, which means that those who are coming in do not have access of those textbooks. We either have to get them new one, or then we have a gap there to fill.
What I don't know about that report is because there is a system to check that. Now there is a dedicated account every year, especially for those, not even for those who are leaving the system. Of course, those who are always leaving the Form 3, there's a clearance. Anything that either a damage or you pay for it. But in the case of the textbooks, there is a direction. I mean, there is a directive that if you misplace a textbook or any school item, you pay, I think, 3 times the amount of the cost of that item. I think so.
But some of your members are not collecting.
I think maybe that is where the lapse could be. And well, if there are rules, I mean, let's be very frank about these things.
Yeah.
We have always told our colleagues, when rules are there, black and white, where we have the concern is when you don't have a straightforward directive of an issue. Then you put the heads in a certain dilemma when it comes to taking certain decisions. But where there are direct rules, and you fail to know those rules or to read those rules, and you are found foul of the law, then they take you, nobody can talk about it. So we will only encourage. Why we can only encourage our people is to also sit up. Get to know what is required of you as a school head. Read the rules, consult, find out. But of course, I mean, it's a human institution. You can always have a perfect...
This is where I was going with
yes.
that. The subject of the question was not really on the textbooks.
Okay.
Could it also be that this is a management problem at the second cycle institutions in that you are unable to manage the resources you are given or come up with innovative ways so that you can feed your students? I
tell you, if we can talk about any magician in this country now, if you remove school heads, you won't get a magician. By and large, there are a few exceptions, like you've just mentioned, rightfully so. But I can tell you, like you rightly put it earlier on, that we've not been talking about a lot of issues. And that will continue to be the game anyway. Don't get convinced that now, I heard President John Mahama saying our school heads can talk. But don't think that we'll be running to a press every time. That's not our game. We'll still do what we're supposed to do. As and when we think that we can come open on certain issues, we'll do that. But the point is that school heads are very, 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 a lot of us. In fact, if I were to rate, I would say over 80% of us are doing very well in terms of finding very innovative ways of handling issues. Kemini, but for the innovativeness of school heads, I bet you the free SHS system, school, the policy, would have collapsed about 3 years back. I tell you, from 2018, 2019, 2020, things were still a bit manageable. But in the last 3 years, it's been very difficult. And I'm telling you, even our former minister, Dr. Adichum, he has never failed. Throughout our interactions with him at our conferences, our meetings, he has never failed to mention that issue that he himself appreciates. I mean, we have always engaged him severally. And he himself, we at times, we got to know that he himself had, challenges. He had his own limitations. If he had his own way, things could be better. But he will sit down openly. And sometimes when we met him with higher authority, there was a time we engaged him with a former vice president. And I mean, he put as vice president, this is where I've gotten to. I mean, clearly. Of course, we were not so happy. We were not so happy because especially where we thought that this suggestion of ours would make things better.
And now you want the magic to stop.
we don't want the magic to stop. We all want to put our heads together.
Well, right now you are performing magic to be able to sustain the program in the school.
So I'm just saying that a lot has been very innovative. I just thought about my school garden project. A lot of us have gone, a lot of school heads have gone to, school heads have mobilized to get stakeholders to buy them vehicles, to build, wonderful dormitories. I mean, these things have been going on. So we've been trying. There may be some few,
bad nuts.
Yes, yeah, but we've been trying, by and large.
We hope to see an improvement in the next Auditor General's report.
We hope so. We hope so.
Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you, Kemeni, for having this beautiful time with you.
Indeed.
We hope to engage more.
Absolutely.
Good.
Primus Baro is National Secretary of the Conference of Heads of Assisted Secondary Schools. We've been talking about the crises we are facing in our education sector at the moment. This is Hot Issues, and I'm Kemeni Amano. Bye-bye.